Hey everyone, Stacy here. Wanted to share some thoughts on the recent NAR settlement news, what it means for the real estate industry. The settlement is not yet finalized, but it has been approved by NAR's legal team and it'll be filed in the courts in about 2 weeks. But then it has to go through federal court approval process. And so there is a very long way to go and a lot of uncertainty. I think the key change in the settlement is that this means that there is the decoupling of the commissions, specifically like the removal of the buyer agent commission from the MLS. And that is actually the most significant shift to how we do business as real estate agents. Because what we typically do now is we go in and we go on a listing appointment and the seller basically it's mandated that the seller fill out how much they want to offer to the agent who has the buyer, and that's going to go away. Apparently, that's going to go away. Anyway, the buyer's agent commission is negotiated between the listing agent and the seller and then offered on the MLS. And what I'm saying is the Department of Justice is arguing that the buyers can't negotiate this commission, which is true. The current system doesn't allow for that. But it does benefit the consumers because the buyers will get their own representation, even if they can't afford to pay, out of pocket. Because when the commission is paid, it's all wrapped up into the sale price, which is, of course, wrapped up into the mortgage. But that's not going to be the case going forward. So you kind of have to wonder, who is this helping and who is this hurting? There is speculation that home prices are going to come down, but I honestly don't see that happening. I don't see sellers like reducing their prices by the amount of commission they're able to keep. I don't see that happening. I think instead, they'd be more likely to keep it. I also think sellers are aware that the commission that they've been able to offer out to the buyer side is just a great marketing tool, right? I mean, we as real estate agents, like we're working out of pocket and we're spending a lot of time and energy, and we only get paid if an actual transaction happens. So, there's incentive involved. I mean, anybody who's been in sales knows that there's got to be some incentive involved. So now what this lawsuit is basically, this settlement is saying is now the buyer's agent should be negotiating their commission with the buyer, with the home buyer, which is not something that is currently happening. And I think, or the buyer is going to basically have to call the listing agent to see if there's a commission being offered by the seller. And we're all assuming that that's not going to affect, how a buyer's agent, promotes or doesn't promote a house for a buyer. I don't see that happening. I think that I don't see that happening. I think that you're just creating a lot of walls and a lot of new skills that buyer's agents need to learn. And I think you're creating a lot of discomfort as well. And I also think that it's another interesting thing to consider is this, as I do mostly listings, right? So I'm on the listing side and I sit down with my seller. I've always said to my sellers, okay, listen, my fee is X, right? This is my fee. And then it's up to you, what you want to offer to the buyer side. And then we would typically go through the MLS to see what is standard for offering to the buyer side. And then the seller would say, okay, I'd like to offer this, right? And then of course, that's something that the agents who are representing all the buyers are able to see. And that is the way they know how they're going to get paid. So in this model, we're basically saying that the buyer's agents have no idea how they're going to get paid. They're going to have to basically negotiate their own fee. But the media is talking about how this is going to allow the buyers to negotiate their own fee. But everybody has to remember, we're in an insane low inventory market. The market is benefiting sellers right now. So the buyers are already dealing with having to pay more money than they thought they had to pay. There's a major affordability issue. And now the buyer is going to have to come out of pocket to pay their buyer agent. Okay, so let's go to the next scenario. The next scenario is the buyer says, well, I'm just going to go directly to the listing agent, which happens a lot. And they come directly to me or any listing agent or the listing team. So now there are going to be changes coming down the pike that are going to allow for me to be paid by two different people in the same transaction. That's going to happen, right? And once that happens, I am now going to be negotiating my fee for the buy side. And I'm going to be actually able to represent both people. Again, there are going to be some changes to allow that to happen. There's going to be designated dual agent or designated agent. But once that happens, if that happens, then now I'm going to be able to negotiate with the buyer what the buyer needs to pay me as a fee. I could ask for whatever I want. And the buyer is, unfortunately, I think, again, the one who is going to get hurt here, because they're going to want to offer me as much incentive as they possibly can because they're going to think it's going to help them get the house. The whole thing is so convoluted. I know. And again, I think that the people it's hurting the most are first-time home buyers, which are the people that are suffering the most in this market. So I think mainly the takeaway for agents, especially buyer's agents, is you need to have your value proposition locked up. You need to know what value you offer, why people want to work with you, what makes you different. Again, your value proposition. And then you're going to possibly be having to have the conversation of what your fee is. It's the same thing a listing agent does when they sit down with a seller. They talk about their value proposition and they talk about what their fee is. Basically, the buyer's agent is going to be doing the same thing. So that's going to be super important. I think for homeowners, I don't really see this affecting them very much. I think that the worst possible scenario for homeowners is they just get less activity on their house because buyer's agents are not bringing people over or steering people away, which I know is not necessarily the right thing to do. But again, if they are concerned they're not going to get paid, then naturally they might skip over your house. So that would be a concern. I think the concern for buyers is not being represented. I think that if they think they're going to just go directly to the listing team or a lawyer and not have any representation at all, that's just theirs, it's like very bizarre to me. I mean, this is probably the biggest purchase of your lives and you need proper representation. So I think for buyers, you need to be doing a very diligent job of interviewing buyer's agents and making sure that you feel there's enough value there for you to hire a buyer's agent. You should be interviewing to hire a buyer's agent. And I think that's very important. And I think overall, I think that there's just a lot of uncertainty and the media is just making a circus out of this. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot more things that are more important that they should be focused on.